A devastating hurricane is heading straight for Dominion's home port. They're scrambling to secure their own boats, protect a luxury yacht,
Mad dash everywhere,
and finish a tricky job before the storm arrives.
There's a huge potential for a lot of destruction.
And there's big money to be made after the hurricane, hauling up sunken treasure sent to Davy Jones' locker by the killer storm. For 50 years, this family's built a business where nobody else dares. Recovering, repairing, resurrecting anything in the world's most dangerous waters. This is their world. Salt water in their blood, come hell and high water.
It's go time. Do or die.
Hurricane Dorian, the biggest and baddest hurricane that ever hit the Caribbean. A Category 5 hurricane, smashing everything in its path, killing dozens of people. Now it's tearing its way up the east coast of North America, heading straight for Halifax, the home port of Dominion Diving.
We just got word that there's a hurricane making its way up the coast to Nova Scotia. They just got flattened down in the Bahamas. They had 300-kilometer-an-hour winds. Category 5. One of the strongest hurricanes recorded in history in that area. And it's on its way right now towards us.
In less than 48 hours, Dominion Diving will be hit with the triple whammy of hurricane-force winds, heavy rain, and massive storm surges.
the hurricane has just left the Abacos and it's just off the coast of Florida. Looks like it may come up in between Nova Scotia and Sable Island. So we're going to be watching the storm really closely. We've got a couple days of prep to do, just in case. We're not going to downplay it at all.
Out of time here, because by the time I pull this one back, right there.
With boats and barges and equipment on the boats and barges and stuff, that's a lot of risk for us to try to mitigate and minimize our exposure to this. So on top of all of our projects from day-to-day stuff, we got to now start hunkering down.
It's our busy season. We have a couple large jobs on the go.
This is Dominion Diving. We are heading for Bedford Basin, north of the old Chinatown dock.
Dominion Diving's been hired to do some heavy lifting, helping a fisheries biologist restore life to the harbor floor.
There is 80 reef balls here.
Okay.
And I'm going to get you to do 3 measurements for me. The first is the biodiversity. Dominion Diving and I met back in 2012 when I came down to the dockyard and kind of proposed this idea of a reef ball project. And I really needed someone that had the capabilities of making them with me, deploying them with me, and monitoring with me.
Use these edges a little bit.
The Reef Ball project is a real interesting project. And the basis of that is just making habitat for marine life. It's simplistic and it works. Piece of concrete, hollow in the middle, all kinds of holes and nooks and crannies, and everything attracts everything in the ocean. So if you have some kelp there, that's going to attract some fish or sea anemones, lobster, crabs. So as people build wharfs and take up more of the marine environment, the seafloor, the waterfront, fish need habitat.
Halifax Harbor is one of the busiest harbors in the world. It's also home to wildlife like seals and minke whales, and on the ocean floor, starfish, scallops, and lobsters. But nearly 300 years of shipping, cruise boats, pleasure craft, and pollution have had a devastating effect on the harbor's ecosystem. Over the past 6 years, the Reef Balls project created artificial habitats in 5 locations around the harbor and deployed nearly 500 reef balls to date.
Currently diving on the Bedford Reef Ball location. Go ahead, Oliver.
Today, Serena's checking on one of the sites that's most hostile to underwater growth. Serena and Dominion installed these reef balls 18 months ago.
So what was that again?
I would say I'm not hopeful to see a lot of life in this site. This is in a contaminated site, and it's very silty, so not a lot of the light gets penetrated, and so there's not a lot of growth. But I can always hope.
And I'm working my way north again. I've just found my first reef ball on the line. This one looks like it has around 95% coverage. Definitely all the sea life is starting to take hold. We have a nice big starfish right there making this one home.
I'm so excited. We did not see this here last year. It's very good news.
Next one in line, as you can see, this one is about 95, maybe closer to 80, 85%.
So it's good to see that it's spreading.
It's good, yeah.
It's got the grass on it as well with the kelp, and before they didn't have that grass at all. So,
No, they had nothing but silt.
so that might just be the start of...
starting a colony, yeah.
That one's got a lot of marine growth on it.
Yeah, got a crab hanging out there, lots of kelp.
It's better than I anticipated, and it's actually proving me wrong.
This one here is about 80% coverage. Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
I'm so excited. It means that plants are starting to colonize in this area that has always been very silty. The harbor is recovering. It's happening. Yeah.
Back at the shop, Serena needs to manufacture the last of 50 new reef balls with some extra muscle from Lorraine.
So what we're gonna do is we're probably just going to poke it first, and then we'll see how much we need.
They need to get them out before the hurricane hits.
The next location for these reef balls will be out at Point Pleasant Park. It's basically like a coral reef is what we're trying to mimic. So this is a reef ball mold. This is a mold that has been set up already. So we have the buoy balls at the bottom, which create the larger holes on the base of the reef ball. And then in the center, we have the bladder, which creates the hollow center of the reef ball.
They're repurposing old fishing buoys to make the reef balls, recycling trash to create wildlife habitats.
But the concrete's marine grade, and it has a special microfilaments in it. There's a certain texture of the concrete that it has to be. It can't be too dry, it can't be too watery. Can you shake it a little more? I don't even think it needs this, because that side is so empty. So if it's too dry, what will happen is it won't actually make it to the bottom, so their holes will be open versus like closed circles all the way around because of the buoy balls. What? I think it's because it's a little watery. We need to fill the back side because that side is so empty. What was that? Did you pop a ball?
No, I didn't pop a ball. It felt like this.
Oh. This is going to be a messed up one, I think. Is it raining?
Yeah, more concrete's hitting in the base.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
The first hint of the approaching hurricane throws a wrench in the mix. The reef balls can't be deployed yet. They need a day to cure before they can be exposed to the harsh North Atlantic. Meanwhile, out in the harbor, the biggest boats are getting out while the getting's good.
It sounds a bit backwards, but the last thing you want to be is stuck in a harbor if you have a large vessel when a hurricane hits. You want to be out in the open ocean. Smaller vessels, you have the mentality, I have to run and hide. Well, the bigger ones, these vessels are so high, when that wind comes, it starts pushing them up on the dock, causing a lot of damage. It's just a real mess.
In the open ocean, big boats can ride out the massive swells without crashing into anything. While many ships are leaving Halifax Harbor, Dominion needs to head back in. The batch of reef balls are dried and ready to be dropped in place.
These, they're all nice here. And this one, like the concrete didn't sink down enough. There's like a big void in it, in here.
Perfect or not, these reef balls have to be mounted on the barge and then submerged underwater, all before the beast of a storm tears into the harbor. There's 1 day left until the hurricane slams into their home port. Dominion Diving is a storm of activity.
There's nothing that we can leave to chance. We're going to do everything we can, get everything ready, have it so that we can do what we got to do.
Today we'll be busy. Mad dash everywhere. The hurricane's coming up the coast now, looking like almost a direct hit in Halifax. So you gotta lock everything in and just hunker down, make sure you got everything fueled up, all the boats are ready to go. You know, we could be going off on a job in the middle of the night, saving a sinking vessel. So we're super busy today. We got the reef balls on the go. That's kind of a priority. We got to get them in. Then also this afternoon, we've had an emergency dry dock in Lunenburg.
To make matters worse, the next job means a 2-hour drive to Lunenburg, a historic town famous for shipbuilding. They got to secure a luxury yacht worth tens of millions of dollars.
That is a boat that cannot go to sea in a hurricane, cannot stay tied to the dock in a hurricane.
And they want to get it out of the water before the wind comes. So we're going to head down there, myself and the owner, Robin. We'll fix their problem, we'll get the vessel docked.
The yacht needs to be secured in this cradle before it can be hauled out.
So that cradle, they're going to lower that down in the water on chains, and that's going to go out in the harbor. And then we're going to put the vessel in.
Sean and Robin's job is to wedge the yacht in place so it doesn't tip over.
All that weight has to be distributed equally and evenly, and it's quite a complex machine. There's rollers underwater that roll on steel tracks. So we got to make sure that there's no debris there, because if there's any debris in the way, the rollers could get stuck somewheres, and then the cradle will actually roll off the rollers. And then we have what we call a train wreck underwater, which we don't want today, especially with a storm coming.
Over on the barge with the reef balls, they got to get the job done so they can get the barge back, tied up before the storm comes. Each reef ball weighs as much as a grand piano, and all that mass will make the barge harder to secure and more dangerous during a hurricane.
A lot of these balls didn't really turn out like we expected them to, and they're heavier on the bottom and really thin on the top. So that's a lifting hazard, and we got to be careful with the divers in the water, right, if something was to let go and break. I don't know, concrete was either too wet or too dry. Oh yeah, it's like really thin right here, pretty crumbly. And if you look in, it's really thick. It's about that thick in the bottom. So that does pose a hazard to lifting it. If you were to put a strap around that there, that would definitely break. So we got to strap it from as close to the bottom as we can and try to get it evenly strapped. And just be very careful when we lift this one.
How close roughly do you want to get to these buoys? 30 feet off?
24 hours before the storm, Dorian has pushed a mass of warm air up from down south. It's great for working, but it's also a warning of what's to come.
So we stopped the barge, so we're just waiting. We're going to get the crane barge in, tied up, and then we'll start setting some anchors. Definitely the calm before the storm. Yesterday morning, it was blowing hard because the wind was getting sucked out of the north from this storm. And then right now, it's, we're in not the eye, but the outer rim of the storm where you get that calm right before the storm. Which is perfect time to do this kind of work, but you just have limited time before the wind starts coming up. So did you let Kevin know to come in there, Donnie?
Yeah, just talked to him there on 12.
Okay, Roger, we're standing by.
The crane took longer than expected to arrive. The clock is counting down. Serena, the biologist in charge of the project, is anxious to get to work.
So we're at Point Pleasant Park, just off Black Rock Beach. There is already 60 reef balls here at the site. We're adding on the 50 reef balls to the site. We're gonna hopefully have them attached to the reef that's already there.
Gary's having a hard time getting the barge in exactly the right spot to drop the reef balls.
So you see, my problem is this anchor is not that way, so I can't pull myself in. I can only pull myself sideways.
And we can't move this barge?
Well, we can't do anything unless we... Well, yeah, I guess we can move that barge forward, but then we're over our anchor line's the only thing. Might be all right.
Gary, why don't we try that by swinging it around?
It's noon.
It's noon, and we haven't started yet.
Nothing like working under pressure.
I can feel the crunch today, and I think it's also because of this Dorian coming. This is also a job that needs to be done. Once I put these in, I need measurements for the Coast Guard, for Transport Canada, for navigational waters. I need the measurement of the reef ball to the surface of the water, the GPS coordinates for boaters. I mean, that's something you need right away once you put any structure down in the ocean.
2 hours behind schedule, and they're still doing last-minute preparations. The crane and barge are finally in position to begin offloading the reef balls, and the clock is ticking down. How are they going to get all this done before Hurricane Dorian hits them straight in the reef balls? After tearing up the Carolinas, Hurricane Dorian will slam into Atlantic Canada in less than 24 hours.
Currently, they're expecting 22-meter seas. We've got to get the reef balls done, get the barges back here, and then tie everything, secure all our barges, the crane barge, the flat deck barge. We have some stuff on the mooring we're going to take in, lock it all together, tie it all together on the wharf.
Meanwhile, after several hours of work, Dominion hasn't even installed half of the reef balls.
There they are. Those are the new ones.
Yeah, but do you want to lower it down a little closer? Then that way, we're going to spring back.
Alongside each other with at least 2 meters space in between, because we're trying to create a parameter around each reef ball to create habitat.
Look at that spacing, Boots. That's like perfect.
That one, that one, that one, and that one.
Time is running out. The deformed reef balls are slowing things down and making the operation dangerous.
Oh, I don't want to get underneath it. Oh, fuck. Oh, my fuck, man. Come down. We'll have to re-sling this one.
They've got to be careful rigging up for the lift. If the deformed concrete gives way, a reef ball weighing as much as a horse could come crashing down onto the deck and anyone working on it. It's dangerous underwater, too.
Okay, up on the wire.
Roger, coming up on the wire.
Things are going smoothly underwater, but up in the sky, dark clouds are gathering. The storm is getting closer.
The storm just started. Yeah, that's
I can feel
happening.
it. Yeah. There's more waves. It's not flat. It's not calm anymore.
A lot more wind.
Yeah, definitely. It could be very serious.
Yeah, it's here. Donnie said all the Navy ships are coming out of the harbor seeking shelter.
We've got 2 more drops to go with 2 little ones, and then we should be set. Careful of that one, the ray. Woo!
Probably better off on this side, just in case it flips on you. There we go.
In spite of all their setbacks, they're able to safely finish before the weather takes a dangerous turn. Two hours away in Lunenburg,
All right, we have to get started here.
Robin and Sean are impatient to begin their part of the job. The preparations for the yacht's dry dock have been going slower than expected.
Right on time.
Right on time.
Finally, the cradle is ready to be rolled out into the ocean and secured under the yacht.
So we're going out. We're a few hours late. We're about 3 hours later than what we wanted to. We still have some light, some sunshine, but we're going to lose that around 7 o'clock. It's starting to get dark in the water already.
They need to get in the water before it gets too dark to see what they're doing. If they make a mistake wedging the yacht in place, they could damage the multi-million-dollar dreamboat.
So what's happening now is the cradle's going out, probably to where the boat is to get enough water depth over the keel blocks. And the guy's up on the footboards at the top of the cradle. They'll grab the lines fairly quick and tie him off so he doesn't blow into the side of the cradle.
After hours of delay, the yacht is safely in its cradle, and it's time for Sean and Robin to get wet. They gotta dive down to make the final adjustments, moving blocks and wedging the yacht into place.
Normally we use hat and hose, divers attached to an umbilical leading to the surface. This time we're going to use scuba. Scuba is actually the safer approach because the biggest part is getting trapped or caught up in moving chains that will just catch your umbilical and cut it.
With so many moving parts, it's a dangerous job, only for the most experienced divers.
Okay, we have 2 divers in the water.
It's taken all day to get this far. It's almost 9 o'clock. They're running out of daylight. Visibility under the water is dwindling. Sean and Robin finally make it out.
Man, that water is so fucking warm. Oh, it's too warm.
A sign of bad things to come, the water is unusually warm, which means the hurricane could increase in power as it approaches the shore.
I lost a little bit of fucking sweat, I'll tell you that. Man, that water's warm.
That's what you were saying.
Like really warm. That went really good. It's a complicated hull. It's got all kinds of appendages and different contours and things like that.
Yeah, it was good. All those blocks fit, and it was, I was surprised actually because of the geometry.
We got full bearing on everything, and there you go. She's up here safe and sound, ready for the hurricane. Oh, red sky at night, except it's wrong.
It's supposed to be Sailor's Delight, and
yeah, red sky at night. We got a hurricane tomorrow, so. Hey.
The biggest storm in decades is about to smash Dominion Diving's home harbor.
Hurricane Dorian hammered the hell out of the Bahamas, and now it's going to hit Nova Scotia. Right now, the winds, they're predicting anywhere between 110 to 160 kilometers an hour. Last report I heard, it's actually going to bounce around 180 or more. You got such a massive storm surge, it's going to push the elevation of the water fairly high.
Even before the storm hits, those winds push so much water, the sea level can swell by the height of a 2-story building.
This is usually way, way up. So now, storm surge keeps coming. Go right off it. Looks like we got about 5 feet left. And we're just getting started with the hurricane at this moment. They say it's supposed to hit around 4 or 5 o'clock tonight. Right now it's noontime, a little after noon. So we still got 5 more hours for this thing to start working its way up towards us. The city right now is going to get a hammering because right now This time of year is a bad time for a hurricane to hit us because all the trees and plants are in full bloom. So all those leaves are acting like a huge sail of a vessel, a huge fetch for all that energy, all that force to be pushing against it, and that can topple trees, that can rip things apart. There's a huge potential for a lot of destruction. Our boats are ready to go, they're fueled up, they're plugged in, our team are on standby. We got to be able to perform at any point in time. Like right now, if someone called us in distress, we'd mitigate the risk, but for the most part, we're able to launch our vessels with the proper team to make sure that we can go out there and safety activate a rescue procedure to help somebody. Now, if there's a ship that's sunk, we're gonna have to wait till after the hurricane. But if there's a life at risk, we're there. We're gonna go for it. But right now, we're gonna let the storm do its thing, see what destruction comes for us tomorrow.
All their vessels and gear roped and secured, the Dominion dive team hunkers down to wait out the hurricane. Matt decides to brave the storm on board his personal boat, the Matador.
We got the storm surge happening now, about a 7-8 foot storm surge. The reason why I'm on the boat is if things go to hell, the docks start tearing apart, I can just engage the engines and drive over stuff and get out of here. I'll go out into the harbor. I have no problem with that.
Here comes Hurricane Dorian. 155 km/h winds push water up on shore. A storm surge 15 meters high. The winds crumple a construction crane, shutting down city streets for blocks. The next morning, the cold light of day reveals the true toll of Dorian's destruction. The city of Halifax is devastated. 500,000 people without electricity from power lines ripped apart by falling trees. But miraculously, no lives were lost.
We made it through the hurricane. The eye went right over top of us in Halifax, Dartmouth. Halifax had some damage. Dartmouth got off not too bad. We do have power here this morning. A lot of places don't have power. Most of the city actually doesn't have power, so we're lucky we're up and running. All our assets are fine, safe and sound. That's not the case with everybody. Cell phone service was down for 12 hours, so we're just expecting here in the next couple days what will happen now that the storm has passed. People will get in contact with their insurance agents and brokers, and then they'll be calling for pricing to salvage this boat or that boat or whatever may have sunk. Several vessels did sink. Some marinas let go and all the dock systems.
One man's crisis is another man's opportunity. Thanks to Dorian's destruction, Dominion Diving is in high demand. They've got the divers, the hauling power, all the equipment to help rebuild Halifax Harbor.
Been being pulled out of the ground.
The biggest job is hauling up a barge that Hurricane Dorian smashed and sunk.
It was this barge tied up in Halifax, and the storm surge beat the barge against the dock despite all the fendering, ropes, and everything that they had put in place to counteract that. And it damaged the barge somehow to where water came in and sunk.
And you're gonna pull it nice and tight. I'll let you know when it's good.
We don't show up here prepared to not win, so we'll run down through all of our protocols and procedures that we set up until the barge is floating on the surface of the water.
There'd actually be another crack right there.
You find your crack?
It's not the crack, but it's a crack.
Yeah, copy that.
The barge, it's kind of hanging on a 30-degree angle from one single line. So guys have to be really careful when they go around the barge, that line doesn't let go. Obviously, there's some issues if the barge moves while the divers are down there.
Beauty, bud. Basically, when we were swimming around, we could see that there was about an inch by an inch hole in one end of the barge. So we basically made up this small patch and some washers, piece of bent threaded rod or something that can hold it in place, and then the neoprene should just seal up the hole.
With the hole temporarily patched, the barge can now be lifted to the water surface. The Dominion crew needs to pump out 30 tons of excess water. That will take all night. Then somehow, they got to get it across the harbor to a metal shop for inspection.
Going the right way.
Oh, yeah, boy.
She's floating.
There are two possible routes to the metal shop. One by road, the other by water.
The problem with a lot of things that float, especially barges, is they're big. This thing is 60 feet long and 30 feet wide. So road transport is not an option in any way, shape, or form. So this is the only way this is going to happen is by movement across the water. There is an element of risk to take it across the shipping lanes. The water reaches depths of almost 100 feet. If the barge were to sink in transit to across the harbor, that would be a complete disaster.
How are they going to tow the massive leaky barge across a busy harbor without the whole thing going down like a ton of bricks? This 90-ton barge took a beat down from Hurricane Dorian. Dominion Diving spent the whole night raising it out of the water. Now they got to tow it to a metal shop for repairs. It's a two-boat operation. One tug to push, the other to keep a watchful eye in case something goes dangerously wrong.
I'm just here as the support vessel now, and also a dive vessel if worst comes to worst and we need to do a dive on this. And just hoping that our patches hold, because the barge is pretty rusty and crusty. That list is a bad thing because it looks like it might be taking on a little more water as we're heading over. So we're just keeping an eye on it, make sure she doesn't go down on us.
If the patches don't hold, the barge goes back down to the bottom.
We got to use caution because anything can happen, and usually when it does in the marine environment, it happens really quick. We're just at the mouth of the harbor here now where there's a swell, which isn't helping us at all either. It just starts rocking the barge back and forth, and then that starts shifting stuff inside and could poke potential other holes. So right now, if it was to go down, this is like the absolute worst spot. This is right through the main shipping lanes of Halifax Harbor. So if it went down here, we wouldn't be able to recover it very easily, and it would just be, it's just all bad.
It's slow going. What should be a 15-minute journey takes more than an hour. Finally, the barge makes it to the other side. Now, Dominion's got to get it out of the water and up onto blocks. Robin's here to coordinate the effort.
There's two cables that come up from each side.
Yeah.
They have to pass through a block this way.
Right.
If you hook it up the other way, the barge will flip over.
Okay, I got you.
It's really important. I think the total weight here is 90 tons.
Okay.
Everything's critical here. The rigging's got to be done the exact way that it was planned, and it's all engineered. These things can go different ways. There's a lot of weight here. There's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of elevated levels of risk. Watch your foot, Christian. Hey, Guillaume, watch your foot under the hook. That's not gonna work. Everything you do, everything's big, heavy, things are unpredictable. Just watch out, because these slings are gonna travel. You can plan it all out, and then the curveballs start coming at you, and you gotta throw them back, and make sure you don't put assets, cranes, people, or anything at risk, right? You gotta keep that's priority. All stop.
Now that the barge is level, the Dominion team can pump out the remaining residual water to lighten up the load for the cranes, clear the deck, and make way for the barge's final lift.
With the two cranes, it's called a tandem lift because they have to make multiple simultaneous movements. They're lifting it up, then they're coming in towards one another. So to do that, they have to change boom angles and articulate everything the whole time so that the slings stay exactly parallel. It's a pretty articulated movement.
The most crucial part of the whole operation is about to begin.
When we're doing this heavy lift, just stay out of the line of fire. Just don't stand under crane booms and different things like that. So you look at where a boom is going to fall if it falls, and you don't hang out there. That's all. It's all bad when this stuff happens. It's not good. They got her now. It's out of the water. It's about 2 feet clear of the water, so they got the full weight of it. Yeah, try to keep it level as you can. There we go. Just got up a little bit. Quite often with the hurricanes, there's wave action, but it's the storm surge that causes all the trouble. Wind direction is what got this. It came out of the east, and it blew right in, right where this barge was docked. So unfortunately, it was just in the wrong place, during the storm, and got beat up against the wharf and ended up sunk.
It'll be up to the barge's owners to decide whether it'll be fixed or sold for scrap. Once the barge is up on blocks, Dominion's work is done.
This is our business, right? Like hurricanes are just one part of it. You got, you don't have to have a hurricane to have wind damage or things sink. Sooner or later, you're going to run into an issue with water coming in when you don't want it to, and if you're not there to catch it, then you end up like this. We're touchdown, we're on the blocks here, so all the risk, all the mitigations, everything we put in place, everything worked, everything went according to plan, and here we are. This is the trophy.
It's been a week since Hurricane Dorian blew into town, kicked everyone's ass, and left Dominion to clean up the mess. They've been busy ever since.
This is what it looks like right now. So this is the existing reef ball formation, and then we just added on to it.
It's 8 weeks before they get a chance to check in on Serena's artificial reef.
We're gonna go to Point Pleasant Park, where we just installed the reef balls just before the hurricane. So we'll head over there and see how they made out.
Because it's an open site, there's not a lot of shelter. There is a potential for movement due to the recent hurricane that we had. So fingers crossed that nothing's moved.
Before they inspect the 50 reef balls installed before the hurricane, they want to check on 60 older ones to see how the marine life living on them weathered the storm.
Yeah, if I could get a total scan of the layer cake, and if you could zoom in to see if there's any life in the layers.
Yeah, a couple starfish, those little fish. We got some kelp growing in there, but other than that, I'm not seeing a whole lot of marine life.
These almost just look the same as the ones at...
I know.
Like, they don't even look that great.
No, I know.
We've seen this before where there's quite a bit more kelp.
Compared to previous years, yes. In June, when I was diving this formation, they were connected. You couldn't see where one began and one finished. It was beautiful.
But this is also an area that would have been getting hit hard by the hurricane, so maybe it might have pulled some of the kelp off.
This site should be better than the sites in the basin due to the fact that it's in the mouth of the harbor. Therefore, there's not a lot of contaminants here versus the other sites.
Like here, there was like 10 to 15 foot swells. So, I mean, some points these were probably totally exposed. And so then you just have a wall of water just pulling all that kelp, right? It would have took a beating.
I mean, they're still productive, but there should still be a lot more kelp on them than there is now.
We've seen better.
What we've used to,
Yeah.
And it looks like I'm coming up to the new ones here, so.
Yeah, it'll definitely be looking like a new one.
Looks like it's sitting nice and good on the top there. Doesn't look like it's moved at all.
They didn't move.
Yeah.
That's what I was worried about, actually. These were designed to withstand hurricane-style weather conditions, and so they have not moved, which is a really good sign.
It still looks pretty good, and we have a starfish hanging out on this one here.
Oh, there's more crabs.
Yeah, we got a crab moving in there to hopefully make a home.
Golf ball?
We get a hole in one.
Oh, can you look at that little fishy?
Yep, we got a little fish hanging out here.
Yeah, it's probably a baby sculpin.
Yeah, I'd say it's a sculpin.
My view on that site is it's not as good as it could have been due to the hurricane. I'm a little disappointed with the lack of plant life on the offshore ends of some of the formations, but the new reef balls that are there, the 50 that we deployed in September, are looking actually amazing for the amount of time that they're down there for. They have algae growth on there already. They have
probably beat them, but...
They have crabs, they have starfish. We even saw some sculpins. So it balanced my reaction because of the new growth that is on the new reef balls. To me, it proves that it's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm trying to recreate fish habitat in areas that not necessarily were thought to even have any to begin with. 100% success.
This is the largest storm we've had in 15 years. It was a Category 2 hurricane, winds up to 155 kilometers an hour. There was a lot of boats sunk, wharfs damaged. We had waves that were up to 50 feet in height. Dominion Diving is 50 years old. We didn't sustain any damage to any of our equipment during this storm. That's because every day we get a little smarter every single day.
We weathered the storm. The prevention on the front end was good. We were able to get the reef balls all deployed, successfully run down to Lunenburg, dock the mega yacht. She weathered the storm fine, no damage at all. And then we've just wrapped up the final phase of our barge salvage. We were successful on all 3 fronts. Now it's time just to take a little bit of time, a couple of hours, and good, all right. Rest it, ready to go, onto the next.
These type of events, they just elevate the amount of work that we're doing all at once. So we're inundated, slammed, all hands on deck. This is what you sign up for, and this is part of the deal. The hurricane's not gonna slow us down.